thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hey guys, so we are here for the sentencing of Michelle TROCONIS. She was convicted a couple of months ago. We, in a similar time frame as the Chade Bell case, which also happened in 2019. This case took place in May 2019, and the Suzanne Morphew case kind of a year later. So it's interesting how some of the cases share the same period in which they get resolved. Anyway, we're going to go, hey Bria, hey Sherry. We're going to go straight to the sentencing. You might get a bit of a delayed broadcast, so if there's a lunch break or whatever, we'll just go through that with the footage that's already there. So this is likely to be fairly emotional testimony. That's usually what these sort of phases of trials are like, where you hear victim impact statements and that sort of thing. Anyway, let's go straight to that right now. Hope you guys are all doing well. Well, there she is. Smiling back towards her family, it looks like.
This is the matter of
She's now being
Connecticut versus Michelle TROCONIS. May the court have the appearances of the parties, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michelle Manning for the state.
Your Honor, good morning, and may it please the court, Sean McGinnis for the state.
For the record, John Schoenhardt representing Mr. TROCONIS. I note, could I ask that the handcuffs be removed, please?
Granted.
Your Honor, good morning. The interpreters would just like.
That's her father, I think, on the left there.
Whether they be letters or other documents, if they speak at a moderate pace, if he tends to speak a lot faster, would we be?
Thank you. The court will first explain how it intends to proceed today. The pre-sentence investigation report has been delivered to the court. Presumably, it has been delivered to counsel. Yes.
Your Honor, if the attorney could just have a moment to put on the headset.
Just quite a clear view we have of her. During the trial, we sort of saw the back of her, and we never really got a good look at her face. She often was sitting slightly behind her attorney, and she does look a little like she's aged a year or two since we last saw her. Still needing to use earphones for, I guess, interpretation. One wonders whether that is practically necessary. She's also still sticking to those colors we remember from last time, beiges, light tones. Remember that there was no single day where she wore red or purple or anything of significance. Well, let's see if we can speed things up a little.
who's considering a matter to reconsider that matter. So that simply does not apply. And with regard to the Ellison case that's cited at footnote 1 of the state's memorandum, I will just note, I read that last night. Not only is it not controlling, I would submit it's irrelevant. In that case, there were 2 separate agreements among gang members, one to beat up a third party and the other to have sex with a 14-year-old girl. And they said clearly that was 2 separate conspiracies. They were not the same. That's the only case the state cites. I know I cited cases that deal directly with issues such as murder, other violent crimes, and then efforts to cover it up. And every one of those cases says, and unless there was a federal case where it was months later, that's part of the same conspiracy. Therefore, based on that, I asked the court to find that there was only one conspiracy and issue vacatur, however it's pronounced, to vacate the other 2 conspiracy counts. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor, good morning. Firstly, I'll just note that I think that the defense's supplemental authority is once again asking the court for the same relief that the court has already denied. It's my understanding, Your Honor, from our last hearing, and the court obviously can correct me if I'm wrong, but the court indicated that at least one of the conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence charges would stand. The issue was whether there was one agreement to tamper with evidence or multiple agreements, as I understood the court's ruling from April 10th. So my objection is essentially that they are asking for relief that has already been denied. Now, whether or not the law of the case doctrine only applies to court judges, I have not been provided with a case that stands for that proposition, but I'll note that the defense did not file a motion for reconsideration. So if we're going to get technical, there was never a motion for reconsideration filed, so the court can deny this motion on that basis. But I'll just note, Your Honor, that under Ellison, it's very clear the factors that this court has to apply when the defense indicates that that case is irrelevant, but that the hearsay cases that they cited somehow are controlling. I'm flummoxed by that argument because it's readily apparent, Your Honor, from our case law, if you look at Ellison, you look at Brown and some of the other cases that have addressed this issue, that the factors which are laid out in Ellison, which incidentally come from the Second Circuit case law, are controlling for determining whether or not there can be multiple conspiracies. Now, with respect to the merits of whether or not there can be more than one conspiracy to tamper with evidence, it's the state's position, and we argued this extensively at the April 10th hearing, that there was sufficient evidence for the jury to find that there was multiple conspiracies, not the least of which is there was 5 days of separation between the 2 allegations of conspiracy. They took place in different towns. They had different objectives. One was to clean the vehicle at a car wash. The other was to dispose of clothing and other potential instruments such as zip ties and things like that in the Hartford area, et cetera. So I don't want to rehash the argument that I made on April 10th, but I would ask the court to deny the defense's motion again.
Thank you. The court gave counsel an indication as to what its preliminary views were on the charging of 3 conspiracies, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder and 2 counts of conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence. The court will now elaborate on its preliminary view. In United States versus Jurgensen, that's a 2019 trial case in the Northern District of New York. The court held that acts of concealment that are undertaken for the purpose only of covering up the criminal conspiracy after its central objectives are completed do not extend the duration of the conspiracy. In other words, the original conspiracy does not contemplate every act that is subsequent for which there is an agreement. Now, that case cites Grunewald versus United States, the United States Supreme Court case, 353 U.S. 391 at 405, a 1957 case. Now, this court finds that there can be a conviction on only one count of conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence, because each incident of tampering follows only one unlawful agreement. State versus Lee, a Connecticut Supreme Court case, 325 Connecticut 339 at 343, a 2017 case, the Supreme Court held that the proper remedy when a defendant is convicted of 2 counts of conspiracy arising from the same unlawful agreement in violation of double jeopardy is a vacator of one of those conspiracy convictions.
So what's certainly quite interesting with this case, when sort of juxtaposed with the Doomsday Mom case and Doomsday Dad, is they both involve conspiracies. We don't really see that every day in true crime. Although people think they are often accomplices, they are more often not. It's very tricky, very complicated, very dangerous to include someone in a conspiracy. It just leads to a lot more evidence, a lot more of an evidence trail. So what's really interesting in this case is you actually have at least 1 or 2 additional co-conspirators besides Fotis Doulos. Same thing in the Chad Abel case. You've got 3 co-conspirators, which is pretty unusual. Let's hope it's not a sign of things to come.
Therefore, this court vacates the conviction on count 4 of the information, conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence. The remaining conspiracy counts are conspiracy to commit murder and 1 count of conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence. And the court does not find persuasive the argument that a conviction on conspiracy to commit murder and conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence violates double jeopardy. The double jeopardy clause of the United States Constitution contemplates 3 general categories: a subsequent conviction after, rather a subsequent acquittal, and then a retrial on the same facts, a conviction and then a retrial on the same facts, or multiple punishments for the same offense. This case contemplates multiple punishments for the same offense because the court has determined that only 1 conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence can stand. The central purposes of the murder conspiracy concluded with the death of Jennifer Doulos. The conspiracy to conceal evidence of the murder is a separate conspiracy.
Judge, I'm sorry. Just to button up the record, Your Honor, may the state, pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 5496, just ask for permission to appeal the court's ruling. I'm not saying we're going to, but just to button up the record so no one says we didn't ask.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving to the pre-sentence investigation report, before we return to counsel, the court notes that there are at least 2 matters that the court has to address. On the second page, the charges of the case, the Office of Adult Probation includes the following statute: 53A-48, 53A rather, -48, and 53A-54A, and indicates that the penalty for conspiracy to commit murder is 25 years, essentially minimum, not more than 60 years. That's incorrect. The inchoate offense of conspiracy in charging a Class A felony becomes a Class B felony. The maximum penalty is 20 years. In addition, the court would just indicate, starting on page 3, current offenses, essentially is a recitation of the facts leading to the investigation and a finding of probable cause. These facts are not taken from the facts adduced at trial. They're taken from warrant affidavits and police reports in the course of the investigation. Senator Schoenhorn, you may be heard.
Thank you. That was going to be what the color just indicated was going to be my first remark, that these, the so-called offense conduct is taken from police reports and warrants.
Okay, guys, so we're going to skip his response to that and go to the victim impact statements, right?
I just may have one moment. Your Honor, Michelle TROCONIS stands before this court after being found guilty by a jury of her peers to the charge of conspiracy to commit murder of Jennifer Dulos, tampering and conspiracy to commit tampering for disposing of evidence in Hartford on May 24th, 2019, and tampering and the conspiracy to commit tampering for destroying evidence in the Toyota Tacoma on May 29, 2019 at Russell Speeders in Avon. She was found guilty by a jury of her peers after trial, as well as hindering prosecution. Before I go into the state's remarks and recommendation, I'm going to ask the court to hear from the people who are most devastated by the defendant's selfish, manipulative, and cruel actions, by her agreement to murder Jennifer Dulos, by her assistance in covering it up, and by her failure to accept any responsibility or show any remorse. I'd ask the court to hear from Jennifer Dulos's mother, sister, 5 children, and the friends who have kept Jennifer's spirit alive despite the cruelty of Michelle TROCONIS. I'd ask Your Honor first to hear from Jennifer's mother, Gloria Farber. If I may just have one moment.
Sure.
Gloria Farber, Jennifer Dulos' mother. She testified briefly during the trial, a lot more briefly than many of us expected.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Judge Randall, for giving me the opportunity to speak about my daughter, Jennifer Rebecca Dulos. When Jennifer did not answer calls, texts, did not go to a scheduled doctor's appointment on May 24th, 2019, the day Jennifer disappeared, I knew something terrible had happened. When I learned about how she died, my thoughts turned to my wonderful daughter, Jennifer, who only wanted to give and to get love and to be a loving mother. She lived in fear for her life and fear that her husband might abduct her children. I thought of how to help my grandchildren when they learned how their mother died. How could I help them and myself cope with the unthinkable? My strength came from needing to cope. My purpose was clear: to be there for my grandchildren and for my daughter, Melissa. My daughter and Jennifer's loyal friends thought it was important to honor Jennifer. We organized a ceremony at Temple Emmanuel in November of 2019, inviting people near and dear to her, family and friends. Knowing songs that Jennifer loved, we asked a pianist and a woman singer to sing her favorite songs. The chief rabbi spoke, as well as several other people. Then we had a reception at the Harmony Club, where we had brunch and more music and I recited the words of a song that inspired my husband and I to find the right name for Jennifer. It starts, Jenny Rebecca, 4 days old. How do you like the world so far? It is a song that was written by Carol Hall. She sent me the lyrics with a note saying, for your Jenny Rebecca. Due to Jennifer's character, she had the ability to connect with a select group of friends to whom she confided and empathized with if they had any issues. These are the friends who have remained with the children, sharing, taking care of their health, education, and encouraging their athletic interests. They're available to hug and love them, and when needed, disciplining them as their mother would have wanted. They have planned vacations, celebrated their birthdays and name days, providing role models who interact with the children as if they were their own sons and daughters. In this way, creating blended families by including their children. One being widowed and having met Jennifer in graduate school is able to mentor the children on any subject. Run with one of the boys who loves running. She has become our family spokesperson. Jennifer's sister, their aunt, loves them deeply and provides a connection to their mother. We honor Jennifer by creating a memorial stone near her father's gravesite. The stone is a replica of her father's gravestone. Jennifer had always wanted to be buried near her father. Now we had a memorial stone where the family and close friends gathered. I asked a rabbi from the temple about my family to preside. She recited Kaddish and asked if anyone wanted to talk about Jennifer. Her sister spoke eloquently, as well as many of the other participants. For years, we searched for her remains, tracking down every lead. This search continues. Every year, we honor Jennifer on her birthday, September 27th, 1968. On that day in September, her children, her sister, her friends, and I crossed the street from my apartment and we walked to Central Park, carrying purple balloons, Jennifer's favorite color. We sit on benches and using markers, we write messages to her. Then we let the balloons go and watch as the wind lets them float to the sky. We watch them until the balloons disappear. Jennifer filled her children with love, wisdom, and humor. Jennifer would have been very proud of her children's accomplishments. They will always have their memories of her, as do I. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was Gloria Farber, Jennifer's mother. I just want to comment on a couple of things related to remorse. So, if you see someone in court crying, does that mean they're remorseful? And we actually did see Michelle TROCONIS, after she was convicted, looking quite distressed. She sort of had her head, I think, on the table, and she was clearly distressed. Is that remorse? Like, what is remorse? Now, there's the more obvious not remorse, as we saw in the conviction and sentencing of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, where someone simply doesn't show any emotion. And sometimes people are told not to. But you would think that if you have the option of getting a mitigated sentence by showing remorse, why would you not try to show remorse even if you didn't feel it? Well, the difficulty there is if you're still holding on to the hope that you're going to beat the rap, if you're still clinging to the chance of an appeal, I mean, as soon as you admit to a crime, well, then that goose is cooked. So it's a kind of a greedy thing where it's, well, you know what, I may be able to still win. Bear in mind, criminals can also come out early on good behavior, that sort of thing. Whereas if you've now admitted to a crime, you can end up in I guess, a worse position potentially than you were in. It's a really interesting thought. If Michelle TROCONIS knows where the body is, couldn't she just stand up right now and say, okay, and I mean, it's a little bit silly because she could obviously make arrangements with the lawyers and try and reach some sort of arrangement with the state and say, there can quid pro quo. If I give you that information, can you? And although it seems straightforward, it is nevertheless admitting to committing a very serious crime for which, if you saw the evidence, maybe you would have even less leniency. In other words, if you saw where the person ended up, you might be even less inclined to mitigate the sentence. So, in other words, if you knew the truth, that might actually aggravate the sentence. In other words, the criminal probably knows that there's no mitigation in admitting what they really did, which is why they can't do that. Another thing is, if you're not guilty, why not just testify? And anyone who's not guilty is going to want to be adamantly, indignantly providing their explanation. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. This is a very unusual case where you've had multiple people involved, the body never found. There is Jennifer and her mother. Beautiful lady.
Next, I would ask the court to hear from Melissa Farber. Melissa is Jennifer's sister.
Only if we'll hear from the housekeeper. Or the nanny, right? The nanny.
Good morning, Judge.
Morning.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about my sister, Jennifer Farber Doulos. On Christmas Day of 2018, my mother and I were visiting Jennifer and her 5 children. When her children were out of the room, Jennifer mentioned that Michelle and Fotis were engaging in some type of fraud. She was extremely concerned about this. At 8:45 on the morning of May 24th, 2019, I awoke with a startle. I did not realize at this time that my sister Jennifer's life was ending. But there was something in me that was shaken to the core. At 10:04 a.m., I sent Jennifer a text in which I told her about my recent trip to Florida to visit our Uncle Jerry. In that same text, I wished her a happy Memorial Day weekend, but I never received a response. By the end of the day, my sister had become a missing person. I loved Jennifer since the day she was born. I remember holding her when she got home from the hospital, I was so proud to have such a beautiful and precious baby sister. And as the years went by, my pride in Jennifer grew stronger. She grew up to be a talented writer and a beautiful person. I miss Jennifer's intelligence, her soft, sweet voice, and the sound of her laughter. There are really no words to adequately express what losing my sister Jennifer has meant to me. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I would ask the court to hear from Petros. Petros was only 13 years old the day his mother was murdered.
I think this is the first time we're hearing from Jennifer's son, one of her children.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Jennifer's eldest son. The defendant's actions in conspiring to murder my mother have had irreparable effects on my life, many that I'm still figuring out each and every day. I've been left with a hole inside of me that I know I will never be able to fill. Losing my mother tore me from the joyful innocence of my youth and made me confront the horrors of the world at an early age.
Sorry, the interpreter will have to ask the gentleman to speak a little slow.
My mother was everything to me. But during the divorce, I became very bitter with everyone around me, especially Mom, because she was always trying to help me. This meant that I hurt the person closest to me because I didn't know how else to voice my pain. The defendant's actions mean that I will never be able to tell my mom how sorry I am for not being a better son when she needed me.
Sure.
I will never be able to tell Mom how proud of her courage I am. Most importantly, how much I love her. This fact haunts me every day. There are feelings and thoughts that I will never be able to express again because my mom was the key to those parts of me. I'm upset that I will never know the man I could have become if my mom was still here to guide me. She was my hero, and now I often feel lost without her comforting smile and her meaningful discussions. I wish I could share my victories with her, but I can't because she is not here anymore. I wish I knew she was in the stands watching me play. I wish I could come home and show her my grades and feel the genuine pride in me that I only got from her. I wish we could sit for hours and discuss everything there is to talk about. I wish she could see me mature from a boy into a young man. I wish I could hug Mom again, but I can't now. Your Honor, I understand that sitting over there is a mother with a child and a family who love her. My mom once had that. We once had that, and she helped destroy it. That woman appeals to our sympathy under the guise of being a mother. She has desecrated the meaning of that word for me. This statement is primarily about my loss, but I also want to highlight my mom's exceptional nature. The number of people who have rallied around us is a testament to the devotion she inspired in those close to her. I want to end with the lesson my mom taught me. Leave everything the same or better than you found it. Michelle TROCONIS, you did the opposite, and you should be punished. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to ask the court now to hear from Kiki Davis. Ms. Davis was a close friend of Jennifer's, her lifelong friend.
I think this is Kiki Davis.
Your Honor, I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts and experience regarding the loss of Jennifer Dulos. I hope the photos here today will give you a visual sense of her kindness, gentle nature, humor, and genuine love for her family and friends. And our words will reach deep and convey our loss. In 1973, I started first grade in Brooklyn and was very fortunate to be in class with Jennifer. She and I became best friends, which over the next 46 years even grew closer to a sisterhood. When Jennifer filed for divorce and was fighting for custody of her children, our friendship grew even deeper. I reminded her often that we were family and that I'd always be there for her. On one occasion, she asked if she could include me and her children as her children's guardian in her will. At that time, I thought it was a smart, practical decision, and of course promised to care and love for them as my own. I'm grateful we had this conversation as it has guided me through the years together. The loss of Jennifer has greatly impacted my and my family's lives. We went from 5 to 10 in our hearts, and even larger if you include Lauren, Laurel, Carrie, Caroline, Melissa, and Gloria. We have learned our hearts are capable of so much love. It has also been a real test to my family's strength. I've been an absent mother to my own children and spouse to my husband, especially during the years that I divided my time living 2 weeks per month in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the other 2 weeks in Brooklyn with Jennifer's children. The heartbreak and guilt of going back and forth has been one of the hardest tests I have ever endured. But that was a choice I made and not entirely something Michelle TROCONIS did to me. However, Michelle TROCONIS' actions, and perhaps lack of actions, greatly impacted me daily, as I'm now the closest person to a mother these 5 may ever have again. My friend Jennifer should be in my shoes hugging her children each morning. My friend should be in my place hearing them laugh or cry. My friend should be by her children's side as they do their homework, get ready for bed, or wish to talk about friends. My friend should be here to teach her family history, her history, and her young years. My friend should be here singing songs, watching their sports games, and doing puzzles with her children. My friend should be troubleshooting and agonizing over colleges, ACTs, and summer jobs. Her children should feel the safety of her hug. They should know her incredible patience and love for listening. They should hear the sound of her wonderful, contagious laugh. They should experience the innate wisdom she holds about the right course for their future. They should feel, not remember, her unconditional love. Over the past 5 years, I have done my best to be a mother to Petra, Theodore, Christian, Constantine, and Noel, while always carrying the deep sadness that it should be Jennifer, not me, seeing and being present in her children's lives. Michelle TROCONIS, you took this from them. Thank you.
Your Honor, I'd ask you to hear next from Theodore. Theodore is Jennifer's son, and he was 13 when his mother was taken from him.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
My mother was the best mom I could ever ask for. She loved me and my siblings unconditionally. She was the brightest light, a shining star, the most unselfish person you would have ever met. At the time, I did not really know all that she was doing. But looking back at it, it was truly incredible. Taking care of 5 young children, dealing with divorce court, checking in on her mother, and trying to stand tall against the evil working to bring her down. My life now is nothing like it used to be. I no longer have my mother, my hero. I'll never talk to her again. I'll never do my homework with her again. I'll never ask her for advice again. I'll never go on an errand with her again. She will never see me graduate high school. She'll never see me graduate college. She'll never see me get married. These are just a few things, and they go for my 4 siblings as well. Michelle, I will speak to you in English because that's the language we've always communicated in. Michelle, imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and your daughter is gone and you will never see her again. Gloria Farber lived this nightmare on May 24th, 2019. What if it was not your daughter, but your sister Daniela, gone without a trace? Melissa Farber went through this on May 24th, 2019. What about if you woke up tomorrow and your dear friend Petu was gone and you never see her again? Kiki, Laurel, Carrie, Caroline, and Lauren, to name a few, experienced that terror on May 24th, 2019. What if you woke up to the news that you would never see your mother again? My 4 siblings and I experienced that life-crushing loss on May 24th, 2019. 5 kids lost their mother. Michelle, you caused this damage. On May 24th, 2019, you not only knew about, but conspired to murder a daughter, sister, friend, and mother of 5 kids. That day, you took away 5 children's source of comfort, our protector. You showed no remorse, and you have yet to show any to this day. You have sympathy only for yourself when you realize you will be punished. You expected to get away with it because you believe you are above the law. You thought nobody would suspect you and that all suspicion would fall on my dad. Unfortunately, you underestimated law enforcement and the justice system in our country that day and the days and months following. You were caught red-handed and you're shocked. You will spend the next however many years behind bars, and this will give you the time to think about what you have done. Every day, you will wake up in a small cell with not much to do. You will have many years to contemplate what you know you have done. If you have just the least bit of humanity, I suggest you let all of us know exactly what happened that day and where my mother is. Do the right thing, Michelle. Admit to your family what you did instead of trying to keep their family pride. Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. I will never forgive you for what you have done, and until you give us more answers, you will be considered evil, violent, and most definitely a coward. An appropriate sentence, Your Honor, would be 50 years, 10 years for each child who lost their mother that day. May my mother rest in peace. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I'd ask Your Honor next to hear from Laurel Watts. Laurel has been Jennifer's friend since childhood and is now a caregiver to her children.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning.
This is my friend Jenny at 20 on my roof in Brooklyn, the summer we lived together. Jenny Farber was my friend for 46 years, from when we were 4 to when we were 50, from community nursery school to middle school math class to Brown University. You have to be pretty extraordinary to inspire friendship that evergreen. She was. All the adjectives: deep, beautiful, genius, outrageous, gentle, and wise can't even come close. We lived together, traveled together, and we held each other's babies when they were born. And I am lonely for Jennifer every day. My conversation with her lasted for 46 years. It ended on May 24th, 2019, forever silenced. I have her last voicemail. I have her last text saved on my phone. I have no other friend who knew me at 4 and at 12 and at 20 and at 50. The Jennifer that knew me at all those ages is gone. And all those Jennies stretching back in time exist only in my memory. I can't see them in her face. Sometimes I can glimpse them in her children's expressions, hear their laugh in theirs. On March 1st, 2024, Michelle TROCONIS was convicted of conspiring to murder Jennifer Farber-Dulos. By killing Jennifer, TROCONIS cut off a future for Jennifer and for us. So much of this trial has been about what was. a failed relationship, divorce, court orders.
Custody.
But every time that I was with Jennifer and her children, she was deeply, truly content. She was always holding one kid's hand, had another in her lap, was making a crazy joke with two of them. She delighted in them wholly. The most relaxed, beautiful, and fulfilled I have seen her in all my years of friendship with her was with them. That should have continued, growing and changing and evolving. But because of Michelle TROCONIS, Jennifer's kids never got that future with her. The week before she was killed, Jenny called me. She was feeling hopeful about the future, that there was light at the end of the divorce tunnel. I said, we're going to have so much fun. You're going to find someone to love who loves you. You're going to be free. But because Michelle TROCONIS, Jennifer never got that future. And I never got that time with her. By killing Jennifer, Michelle TROCONIS shattered Jennifer's family. I have spent every day for the past 5 years, numb with grief and raging with anger, working with these extraordinary people to piece this family together. We are a patched, wobbling, defiant, and loving thing. At the same time, I have struggled to protect my family from the fallout and the grief, my neglect, and my anger. I've asked everything of my husband, my children, and my aging parents, and I will keep asking it of them because our project is never going to end. By killing Jennifer, TROCONIS left 5 children without a mother. I witness that loss every day. I take solace in Jennifer's children, Christian and Constantine, Petros and Noel and Theodore, because they are part of her and they are now a part of me, like she was a part of me. But every act of mothering them, hair brushed, hands held, secrets kept, fights, worry, and pride is bittersweet. All joy is mediated. Because every moment that's good and every moment that's bad, Jennifer desperately wanted. It should be her visiting colleges with Theodore, lazing in bed with Christian, cheering at Noel's volleyball game. It should be her wrestling with Petros's ACTs and laughing at Constantine's newspaper article. Not me. But Jenny's not here. Because TROCONIS helped destroy evidence and lied to the police, Fotis Doulos remained at large over 9 months following the murder of Jennifer, from May 2019 to January 2020. That's May, all of June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. We lived in a state of fear that we would lose the kids to him and that they would be hurt. Hours after the murder, Doulos demanded we return the kids to him. 2 days after the murder, he was raging in our lobby. Even after he was arrested, the police warned us that he would kidnap the kids or enact some violent revenge on us for taking care of them. I did the calculations. How long did we have from when the ankle bracelet alarm went off until he arrived on our doorstep? 1 hour? Maybe? The kids were accompanied everywhere by armed security guards for 9 months. And I was never not on alert. Because TROCONIS lied to the police, Jennifer's body has never been found. I could not mourn Jennifer openly because she was missing. I could not answer the kids' questions. Where is she? I gave a eulogy at a memorial without a body. Her mother put a headstone over an empty grave. Because TROCONIS assisted Doulos in the disposal of Jennifer's body, all we do have is a bloody bra and a shirt stiff with Jennifer's blood, sliced up the center. And all of the horror engendered by these, our only artifacts. That's what the kids have left of their beautiful, gentle mother. And that's what I have left of my friend. In the instructions explaining the scope of the victim's statements, we are invited to give our opinion as to what should happen to the defendant. In my opinion, Michelle TROCONIS deserves the maximum sentence available under the law. 1, your cruelty is stunning, and therefore you deserve a sentence at the upper limit of the range. These 5 children were not an abstraction. They were not your boyfriend's kids, a photograph on a desk. You skied with them, you lived with them, you fed them, you tucked them in.
Yeah.
Your child, Nicole, is the same age as Petrus and Theodore. She is a daughter, like Christiane and Noelle. How could you, as a mother, knowing what that means, knowing what that bond is, how important that is for Nicole, choose to kill the mother of these children you claim to love? You must have known what the outcome would be, the devastation, but you did it anyway. Killing Jennifer demonstrates a capacity for cruelty that is mind-boggling, or that you are incapable of human feeling, that you are unable to conceive of these children as anything other than things to be acquired. Your greed is engulfing, and therefore you deserve a sentence at the upper limit of the range. You claim you didn't know Jennifer, but you coveted her life, and you effectively took it for your own. First, you took Jennifer's husband. Whatever the state of their relationship, they were married. Then you took Jennifer's home, moving yourself Miami into Fort Jefferson, into Jennifer's bed. You moved Nicole into one of the kids' bedrooms. You enrolled Nicole at the school where Jennifer had 5 children, friends, a community. You tried to take Jennifer's children. By erasing Jennifer, you hoped to get custody, becoming what you and Fotis prematurely claimed to be, a married couple with 6 children. You cold-bloodedly planned, executed, and covered up Jennifer's murder, and therefore you deserve to be sentenced at the upper limit of the range. This killing was not an accident. You did not lose control. You helped plan every complex step, minute by minute. You drifted around that house, fiddling with Fotis's phone, providing him with an alibi, all the while knowing he was in New Canaan, snuffing out Jennifer's life. You were intimate with him against the door of the Tacoma, bloody seats and all. You sat in a Raptor chewing gum and texting while he disposed of bags of bloody evidence. That is the definition of cold-blooded.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I believe any and all sentences should be served consecutively. There are no mitigating factors. This woman is sophisticated. She is educated. She's an independent person. She was not swayed by Fotis. I knew him 4 years, much longer than she did. And he was no Svengali. He had no special powers. She has shown no remorse. She's had many opportunities over the past 5 years to help or show compassion, and she never has. Finally, to the degree time in prison provides retribution for these crimes, she deserves to be sentenced at the upper limit of the range. TROCONIS' daughter, Nicole, was 12 when TROCONIS conspired to kill Jennifer. In the past 5 years, TROCONIS has raised her daughter into young adulthood. In Connecticut, Miami, and Colorado. TROCONIS has been available to her mother, spent time with her sister and her friends. Jennifer will not raise her children past May 24th, 2019. Jennifer will never take care of her mother or sister. Jennifer will never spend time with us, her friends. Jennifer's sentence is forever.
Yeah. Powerful ending, I say.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask the court to hear next from Christiane. Christiane is Jennifer's daughter. She was 10 the day her mother was murdered. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
The first time I met Michelle, we were water skiing in Miami. I'd heard that she was my dad's friend, and that was all I ever thought was relevant to know. The next time she came into my life was when we left Farmington with my mom. I don't remember it very well, but I didn't know we were leaving Fort Jefferson for good. When my mom told us we were going to New York, I expected just another visit to my grandma's house. And the pictures of the house we were moving into began to be shown, and talk of dad's cheating slipped from adult mouths and spread to me. I was confused. My dad, the person who I looked up to, was doing something awful, and it was with Michelle. Michelle, the woman I had not given a thought to since I had last seen her. Our lives completely changed from then on. We were living in New Canaan and getting enrolled in New Canaan Country School. I remember talking to my dad on one of our visits. I asked him something like, "Why did you cheat on mom? I thought you said cheating was bad." He answered, "When you really love somebody, sometimes you can't wait." It occurred to me then that the person dad really loved was no longer my mom. It was Michelle. Michelle, the one who was moving into my house, sleeping on my mom's side of the bed. It occurred to me then that this affair was why my mom took us and left, why she cried at night, and why we were no longer a family. From then on, Michelle was a part of my life with my dad. Later on, my dad told us that Michelle was not allowed to be around us anymore, and that if we wanted to keep seeing her, we could not tell mom that Michelle was at our visits. I cared, almost more than anything, about keeping my dad happy and proud. So when my mom asked me if Michelle was at our visits, I lied. I stood in her bathroom, just my mom and me, looked at her and said, "No, she's not at our visits." Not because I wanted to keep seeing Michelle, but because I knew dad wanted to. Mom found out that we lied, and soon dad's visits became shorter and shorter until it was once a week with the supervisor. Michelle's presence in our lives, even before May 24th, was overwhelming and invasive. I lied for her. I was told to trust her. I switched bedrooms so that she and her daughter could move in, all while seeing the effects this had on my own family. On May 24th, 2019, I went to my friend's house after school while my siblings went to New York. I was told I had to sleep at that friend's house because something was happening, but nobody told me what. That night, I called my mom and she did not answer. On the same day, my dad, with the help of Michelle TROCONIS, murdered my mom. And even though Michelle may not have been holding the weapon, I truly believe that she had a lot more to do with everything than she's letting on. Michelle TROCONIS, to me, is the reason I feel completely lost and alone on nights when I cannot sleep. She's the reason why I've blocked out my childhood, and that day so much I can barely remember it. She's the reason kids at school look at me with pity, the reason my teachers say guardians and not parents, the reason I've had to sit and watch as the people who care for me break down, the reason my siblings move through life with a huge piece of them lost. She's the reason I've had to sit on the bathroom floor with my little sister and try my best to comfort her. She's the reason I had to visit my dad in the hospital, knowing what he did and knowing he chose to leave us. She's the reason I did not get to visit my mom in any sort of way before she died and have no closure in her death. She's the reason I no longer feel I have a real beginning, a home to always come back to, parents I will always belong to. She's the reason words mom and dad spark nothing but a hazy memory. The reason those words will never again represent the person who holds me in their arms as I cry about some unimportant temporary problem. The person I can casually go to lunch with and talk about all the gossip and trauma with. The person who comes to my sports games and cheers me on. The person who picks me up from school. Mom and dad are words that only bring trauma and grief. I will never again share those simple moments that mean everything. Now, the only time I can feel my mom's presence is through memories. I listen to my grandma tell me about my mom when she was my age. Her friends share stories of her life. All of this is bittersweet. I hold on to these moments of her life, knowing it should be her telling me these stories. I read her own writings where she talks about motherhood and of the future she never got to experience. Our teenage moments that she predicts she never got to live through. And now I'm coming to a point in my life when I'm starting to understand the full person she was. I only knew her as my mom. I'm now discovering who she was as a child, a teenager, a young adult, by myself. She should be sitting here and doing it alongside me. Michelle TROCONIS is the reason I've had to wake up every single day since May 24th, 2019, and ignore the first 10 years of my life because I cannot even begin to process everything. For that and everything else I've said, Michelle deserves the maximum time in jail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Imagine that thinking
Next,
of
I'd ask
your
the court to hear from Lauren Almeida.
thinking
Gloria
of your,
was the nanny to Jennifer's children
she's the nanny.
and was Jennifer's friend.
Imagine thinking of your parents just with painful memories.
Your Honor, thank you for letting me speak today. This is a photo of Jennifer on her 50th birthday. We all
Look at that
celebrated
picture.
It's also her last birthday that we all celebrated together. I first met Jennifer in 2012 when she had 5 small kids and I was 21 in my senior year of college. I started babysitting for Jennifer once a week, but then that grew to seeing Jennifer and her kids almost 6 days a week. From the beginning, I was never just their nanny. To be inside someone's home is such an intimate experience, one that has many ups and many downs. But right away, Jennifer opened up her home to me and made me part of their family. We were a duo right away. She trusted me and I trusted her. It was Jennifer I went to when anything happened in my life, when I needed direction or someone to just vent to. Jennifer always had my best interests at heart and gave me a space to be heard. She made me laugh. She made me think about my future. And she provided me with opportunities I never thought I'd have. Most importantly, she loved me and I loved her and her family. Through this experience, I've gained people in my life that were Jennifer's closest friends and are now my chosen family. Women who are teaching me how to be a mother, how to let things go, how to just live and love. They have all taken some place of what Jennifer was to me, even though that hole can never be filled. There's a piece of Jennifer in all of them. I hear Jennifer's voice in Kiki's, her intelligence in Carrie, her force with Laurel, and her wittiness in Caroline. Seeing Melissa and Gloria, I see Jennifer in their eyes and smiles. While I've gained this chosen family, it shouldn't be like this. It should be Jennifer sitting at the table helping with homework. It should be Jennifer attending sports events. It should be Jennifer taking them on college tours. It should be Jennifer's bed they run into at night. It should be Jennifer giving them advice on friendships. It should be Jennifer that they have to console them. It should be Jennifer to see them at their sad times and at their happiest. And you, Michelle, you have helped take away all of this. You took their mother and you took my friend. The actions of Michelle TROCONIS have greatly affected my life and continue to affect my life. The day Jennifer went missing was the day I started to fear not only for my life, but the life of Jennifer's 5 children. And this was directly because of what Michelle and Fotis decided to do on May 24th, 2019. I no longer slept. I no longer could leave the apartment without running to my car in fear that someone would come after me. I could no longer enter my home in Connecticut without a police officer because I was afraid of Michelle and Fotis being on the other side waiting for me. We didn't leave the kids alone because we were certain Michelle and Fotis would try and take them. We had armed bodyguards escort us anywhere we went because we lived in fear 24/7. I had nightmares so bad, I woke up in tears shaking, unable to let go of the thought of Michelle and Fotis taking these kids and doing something unthinkable because the unthinkable had already happened. It has been proven that Michelle conspired with Fotis to kill in the most gruesome way, a mother of 5 kids, a mother and my friend. May 24th, 2019 was the day Jennifer was murdered by Fotis and Michelle. And that was the day I decided I wouldn't leave those kids until she was found. It's been 5 years and I still haven't left their side. I had a relationship, upcoming career, family, friends, my whole life in Connecticut. I left all that to help Gloria and Jennifer's close friends to care for these kids. My relationship ended. I lost the place I called home. I've lost friends and time with my family. I had to rethink what my life would be like now that I had 5 kids to help look after. These kids have become my whole world. And they've taught me what unconditional love is. But because of what Michelle has done, my life has become something unexpected. I put my own goals in life on hold. My desire to have my own children has been paused. I've also witnessed what losing both parents have done to these kids. Tears, fear, sadness, because they no longer have parents to watch them grow up, watch them graduate, help them learn from mistakes, enter relationships, and share memories of their childhood. The feeling we all feel knowing we have our parents in this world that love us unconditionally, no matter what we do. The 5 of them lost that. And while the kids are surrounded by unconditional love, this feeling of safety and security for them is gone. You, Michelle, were found guilty on all accounts in this courtroom. You, Michelle, drove with Fotis while you threw away Jennifer's bloody clothes in the trash. You, Michelle, lied multiple times to the police. You, Michelle, have been disrespectful in this courtroom. You, Michelle, have been found guilty of conspiring with Fotis to murder Jennifer. And you, Michelle, show no remorse and no accountability. Michelle TROCONIS deserves to spend the maximum sentence behind bars because of all that she did. She helped change the course of so many people's lives. And for what? To take Jennifer's place? Because you could never. To live this lavish lifestyle Fotis promised? We'll never know, because I believe Michelle will never be honest. She took away the most genuine, thoughtful, funny, and kind person I have ever met. She took away a mother who sang silly songs to her kids, who was always there when they fell to lift them back up. A mother whose whole life was Petros, Theodore, Christian, Constantine, and Noel. Now, these kids and all of Jennifer's loved ones no longer have that. We don't even have the comfort of knowing where she is. Where is she, Michelle? Michelle helped take Jennifer's life at the young age of 50, and she deserves to live out the maximum sentence behind bars. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That is powerful.
Your Honor, I would ask the court to hear next from Constantine. Constantine was Jennifer's son, and he was 10 years old when his mother was murdered.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
The actions of Michelle TROCONIS on May 24th, 2019 drastically impacted my life. All this began back in 2016 when I first met Michelle TROCONIS. I remember that my dad developed a new poisonous personality while she was around. Michelle's careless behavior led to their affair, cheating on a wonderful mother who had done nothing wrong. A family living on the opposite side of the country. Michelle was the absolute last thing my family needed. Throughout the divorce, when we had visitation with my dad, the court ordered that Michelle was not to be present. However, she insisted that we did see her. She insisted on making our family normal. She put pressure on my dad to get the divorce over. She made it clear to my dad that they had to do something. She conspired to commit murder. She conspired to commit tampering with physical evidence. She tampered with physical evidence. She hindered prosecution. She has shown no remorse. She has not cooperated. She attempted to frame Pavel, an innocent and kind man. Jennifer, my mother, was a caring mother of 5 children, a loyal friend and sister, a lovely daughter. My mom always had a dream to be grandmother, forgetting the names of our many children. She will not have that. Taking away a nurturing mother at such a young age is not something you, the court, can take lightly. I can't go home to my mom and talk to her about my school day. I can't listen in on any of her stories. I can't crawl into her bed late at night. I can't learn things from her, like when she taught me how to tie my shoelace the proper way. She was my favorite person in the world, my role model. She is still somewhere in my heart. However, I will never be the same person as I was in Connecticut. All this loss is because of Michelle TROCONIS. I think she should serve the maximum sentence possible. In the end, however, your decision and my statement are not about me or Michelle. This is about serving justice for my mother, Jennifer Doulos. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So for almost everyone is saying
Next, I'd ask the court to
maximum
hear from
sentence.
Caroline Buckley. Caroline is a longtime friend of Jennifer and caregiver now to the children as well.
Judge Randolph, thank you for the opportunity to address the court. Jennifer was my friend for 12 years before her murder. Our children are the same age and went to the same school together until she was forced to leave Farmington in 2017. We celebrated births and birthdays together, school concerts and sports days. I miss her every day. In 2017, when Jennifer found out about Michelle TROCONIS, such was her fear of FOTUS that she planned her escape. She hid her belongings at my house before she fled. She left a community of friends that loved her. She left a school that her children loved and that the defendant subsequently enrolled her daughter in. Throughout the following months, Jennifer was shocked at the behavior of Michelle TROCONIS. Jennifer, honest to her core, was horrified at Michelle's belief that rules did not apply to her. We witnessed this behavior throughout the trial. As a result of Michelle TROCONIS' lies, FOTUS Doulos was not initially arrested. Living in Farmington meant that my family were located in close proximity to the defendant. Every day, we lived in fear. We searched for answers and looked for clues for Jennifer. Places that had warm memories of friendship and fun childhoods became the stuff of nightmares. On a practical level, in May 2019, it became clear that Jennifer's house belongings in New Canaan needed to be tended to. Documents relating to her children within days of her murder needed to be retrieved from that house. So 7 days later, I went into that house. I remember the 5 fish swimming in their bowls, the kitchen with balloons left over from a celebration scattered about the fingerprint dust and bloodstains. Going into that garage where my lovely friend met the end of her existence is something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. It was devastating to witness the evidence of suffering and unimaginable fear and pain Jennifer endured in her final moments. Michelle TROCONIS' actions on May 24th and beyond have had heart-crushing implications for her children, Petros, Theodore, Christian, Constantine, and Noel. Throughout our friendship, we talked about hopes and dreams for our children. Every day since their mother's murder, I have watched these dreams take shape, but they are a little duller without her bright light, and they will always be that way because of the actions and very clear inaction of Michelle TROCONIS. Since May 24th, 2019, I've thought about Jennifer every day. I would be going through my normal day and inevitably be stopped in my tracks by the reminder that this happened to all of us. My husband, my children, my siblings, my mom. While I am grateful for the family we have created, the reality that this murder has taken place shocks me every day to my core, and I still find it hard to fathom that Jennifer is gone. I am left to navigate a world forever changed by the cruelty of the defendant's actions. The brutality of Jennifer's death haunts me, leaving me with questions that will never be answered and wounds that will never fully heal. I miss my friend deeply. Her generosity of spirit, her optimism in human nature, her firm belief in her children, and her fierce enthusiasm for life. Our life will never be the same. Michelle, you know what your actions have affected families, not just in Connecticut, not just in the USA, but across the world. Your decision in 2016 when you met FOTUS was yours alone. You could have walked away, you chose not to. You chose to get involved with a married father of 5. You chose to move to Connecticut. Know that we see you. We saw you then, and we see you now for what you are. There is no doubt in my mind that you should spend the rest of your life in jail for your actions. Thank you, Your Honor.
I ask the court next to hear from Noelle. Noelle was 8. She was 8 years old the day her mother was murdered.
Your Honor, Michelle TROCONIS and her actions have affected my life in many ways. I've now lost the 2 people I've loved most in this world. My mom will now never get to see me or my siblings grow up, something I had known she had always wanted. I'm now growing up without my mother. This is something no child should ever have to do. Her life was cut short, and Michelle was a contributor. Finding closure is impossible, considering Michelle never gave any information about where my mother is and what actually happened on May 24th, 2019. Because of that day, I constantly feel like something worse is bound to happen to the people I love, and it could be my last moments with them at any minute. I remember seeing these stories on the news and thinking they were just simply crazy stories and they would never happen to my family or me. But because it did, I feel scared that it will happen again and again to everyone I love most. Most of all, I feel betrayed by Michelle. I vividly remember her on ski trips when I was scared to sleep at night, or her picking me off my bunk bed because I was scared to go down on my own. And I remember trusting her. I don't understand how she could be so selfish. And it scares me to put my trust in other people now because of Michelle TROCONIS. She has made my family and me suffer. Because of this, I believe she should serve the consequences of her actions. And I believe she should receive the maximum sentence. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I would ask the court to hear from Carrie Luft. Carrie is a longtime friend of Jennifer. She's also a caregiver to the children and the Farber family spokesperson.
So for all the
After board
children
hears from Ms.
saying,
Locke, we will take a morning recess.
okay,
And Ms. Luft will conclude the speakers, Your Honor. The state would go into their remarks after the recess.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
There's more to writing than just recording the facts. There's what's called fiction, art. Some people can turn their memories, the images that haunt them, into transcendence, freedom almost. The purging, it creates a lightness, a light almost. Jennifer Farber-Dulos wrote those lines in a play in 1996. She was a gifted and singularly perceptive writer and my dearest friend for almost 30 years. She was the maid of honor at my wedding, and 12 years later, she stood with me at my husband's wake. After his death, she was my emergency contact. We talked to and wrote to each other about everything under the sun and supported each other artistically, intellectually, emotionally, unconditionally. When Jennifer redid her will in late March of 2017, she asked me to be her healthcare proxy. She trusted me, as she put it, to know when to shut it down. The scenarios I reluctantly considered at the time: a terrible accident, terminal disease, do not even come close to the depraved, meticulously planned, brutal murder of Jennifer in her own garage, the desecration and disappearance of her body, the discarding of her bloody clothing in garbage bags destined for a landfill. Those images, everything I witnessed at the defendant's trial, all the missing pieces of evidence and actions in between that we have to imagine swim in my mind every day. Beginning on May 24th, 2019, as you have heard, and continuing seamlessly for 5 years, a group of us, Jennifer's close friends, have supported Gloria Farber in the raising of Jennifer's 5 children. We have all overhauled our lives, our relationships, our careers to create a safe, trusted, loving home life for them. I cannot imagine doing anything else. I hope that gives a sense of the strength of Jennifer's love and friendship. I tried to live out her values in my relationships with each of them, especially those of empathy, kindness, love of literature and humor, and respect for their individuality. I feel a duty to keep her memory and spirit alive for her children not only by relating stories, but through sharing books, films, plays, music, and experiences that spoke to her so that she can continue to reach them. On that first weekend that Jennifer was missing, I also became the media spokesperson for our group of family and friends. I am not a public relations professional. I am a writer, and I was impelled to use my skills to represent our friend, to be an insightful, trustworthy voice for her family and loved ones amid the increasing media interest. Jennifer was a deeply private person. The extensive media coverage, the digging into her life and the lives of her family members, the proliferation of her photos online would have horrified her. I feel compromised each time I issue a statement or participate in an interview, yet I'm committed to being a voice for Jennifer and to protecting her family's privacy. In so doing, I have become a public figure. All of us are now characters in a public true crime narrative, which is an unsettling and bizarre experience. I acknowledge that I have voluntarily assumed the role of spokesperson, but it takes a heavy toll. Every time I am asked what it felt like when, I am re-traumatized. I must also hold back a large body of information. During the defendant's trial, it was distressing to realize that most of my communications with Jennifer would be regarded as hearsay in a criminal court. Jennifer began to express overt fears for her physical safety in the spring of 2017, after Fotis Doulos announced his plans for the defendant to move to Farmington. His behavior changed to become more physically aggressive and defiant toward Jennifer after he became involved with the defendant. She showed up to tour Renbrook School in early April 2017, the school attended by Jennifer's children, a couple of weeks after Jennifer had learned of the affair. In April 2018, she defied family court orders by touring New Canaan Country School, then attended by Jennifer's children. This was not proactive legwork on behalf of her child. These were acts of aggression toward Jennifer. Because this information would not be admissible as evidence, I was not able to stand up for Jennifer, to relay her experiences and voice her fears that the defendant was trying to replace her. On May 24th, 2019, the defendant collaborated on the plan to kill Jennifer by transporting, unlocking, and operating her partner's phone while he murdered Jennifer in New Canaan. Then she actively participated in the destruction of evidence, which delayed the murder arrests until January 2020. That delay enabled the introduction of a degrading line of argument and speculation put forth by Fotis Doulos' defense counsel that Jennifer had voluntarily disappeared, abandoning her children. This was slander, suggesting that Jennifer was not only alive, but also deceitful, cunning, and unspeakably callous. The theory was picked up widely in the media, and I had to defend a murder victim in the press, the most conscientious person I have ever known, who was unfailingly devoted to her children and loved them beyond compare. The defendant repeated the theory that Jennifer had run away multiple times in her interviews with the investigators. That was not a coincidence. During the period from June 2019 to January 2020, we, Jennifer's loved ones, were not permitted to acknowledge that she was deceased. As our spokesperson, I had to publicly sustain the fiction that she might be found alive, which was deeply dishonest and felt disrespectful of what Jennifer had endured. We held a memorial for her in secret, tightly managed, fearful that the media would find out and report that the family believed Jennifer was dead. The defendant's refusal to provide any information, even speculative, as to what was done with Jennifer's body is a sustained act of cruelty. We are unable to bury Jennifer or to mourn her properly. I lie awake at night, recreating in my mind the log of actions and locations on May 24th and the days surrounding it, trying to piece together where Jennifer is. For the defendant, Jennifer's murder was not enough. She has continued to disparage and degrade Jennifer over the 5 years following. From her interviews with the investigators in the summer of 2019 to her actions in criminal court in 2024, she has repeatedly insisted that Jennifer was sick. On February 15th, 2024, during the criminal trial proceedings in this very courtroom, I witnessed the defendant displaying on her laptop in very large type, with the intent that it be readable from a distance, a sealed family court document that was stricken from the record. Earlier that same afternoon, I heard the defendant state aloud in English while walking out during a recess for everyone within earshot to hear, she was sick, followed by a psychiatric diagnosis. Even at her own trial, at which she did not take the stand, the defendant was using underhanded, provocative methods to espouse Doulos's defense theory. Her continued insistence that Jennifer was sick indicates the following to me. After that discredited document had failed to get them what they wanted in family court, which was custody of the children, the defendant and her partner were still depending on it for their defense, to support the notion that Jennifer had run away. These actions by the defendant occurred weeks after Jennifer's blood-saturated shirt, her brassiere dyed maroon with her own blood, both garments cut down the front, were presented as evidence. I urge you to apply the maximum sentencing to the defendant. She wanted to erase and replace Jennifer Farber-Doulos, and she very nearly succeeded. She believes that the rules do not apply to her, whether the protocol of a courtroom or regard for human life. It is she who is deceitful, cunning, and unspeakably callous. When she conspired to murder Jennifer, she gave no thought to the 5 children, young people she knew well and professed to love, who would be torn from their mother and she from them forever. In a play Jennifer wrote more than 30 years ago, a character says to herself, I have this dream that keeps me going. I go downstairs and there she is in a bassinet under the shelves. I reach in, pick her up. She is heavy as I lift her. She opens her eyes. They're brown, like mine, like hers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well done, well done.
Perhaps that would be a good time for a break, Your Honor.
We are going to take a morning recess. What the court
Because that
will
photo of her,
indicate is that you should heed the direction of Chief Suda as to how to leave the court. We'll stand in a recess.
Okay, we're gonna skip the recess and go to the next part of this process.
Your Honor, heard from today. Petros, remember, was 13. Theodore was 13. Constantine was 10. Christian was 10. And Noel. Noel was 8. She was 8 years old when the defendant conspired with Fotis-Doulos to kill their mother. And some of the things Your Honor heard from the family are proven to be true. The defendant knew these children for years before 2019. She professed to care for them. I think about Noel's story about trusting the defendant. And at the same time that she professed to care for these children, she made the conscious decision with Fotis Doulos to take their mother's life. Knowing you are going to inflict unimaginable pain, suffering, and loss on 5 small children, and still making that decision, still deciding to commit murder, then covering it up and destroying evidence, this resulted in so much pain that is still to this day, and with no closure in sight. Because Jennifer's family still doesn't know the location of Jennifer's body. And make no mistake, we will never stop looking. Jennifer's murder was so premeditated, so planned. Everything was planned out, from answering the phone, acting as an alibi, to assisting with the disposal of Jennifer's bloodied shirt and bra, along with the other items used in the crime, in the garbage on the streets of Hartford. The defendant willingly agreed to answer the alibi call, to walk around and carry Fotis's phone that morning, and to participate in the cleanup at 80 Mountain Spring Road and light the fires. And days later, she willingly agreed to continue this cover-up by writing a false alibi script, and at Russell Speeders by assisting in further destruction of evidence in the vehicle that was used in the homicide. And all those lies she perpetuated with the police, she did those acts on her own, just like she willingly agreed to murder Jennifer Doulos. It's the motive, Your Honor, the facts of the case that came out during the trial, the contempt the defendant has shown, and the cruelty that she has imposed on so many people, which mandates a substantial amount of incarceration. The motive, the reason the defendant agreed with Fotis Doulos that Jennifer needed to die was clearly brought out in the trial. The defendant wanted her dead. It is only with Jennifer's death would all the court hearings and custody hearings stop. Remember the defendant's own words that she endured 2 years of torture. It's been like a nightmare. Then she would finally be able to live in a beautiful home in Farmington. Fotis Doulos would have all the children in his home. Michelle TROCONIS would finally get everything she wanted. She could replace Jennifer. But in order for that to happen, Jennifer had to die. William Shakespeare wrote, "There is no sure foundation set on blood, no certain life achieved by others' death." That quotation rings so true here because the defendant thought she could build her life on Jennifer's death. The defendant wanted so badly to replace Jennifer that in April 2017, before Jennifer had even moved out of the family house, that's when she toured the school that the Doulos children were attending. And when Jennifer moved to New Canaan, the defendant again toured the school, New Canaan Country School, where the children were attended, even when she still resided in Farmington, miles away. She moved into the house at 4 Jefferson Crossing, a house Fotis and Jennifer built together, paid for by Jennifer's family. She worked at 4 Group, a business financed by Jennifer's father. And she immersed herself in the homeowners association in the neighborhood, trying to replace Jennifer and the Doulos children. Even when she wasn't supposed to be near them during visits, she was. The children were given the impossible and cruel task of lying to their mother. The defendant's cold-heartedness, her selfishness, it absolutely has no bounds. But it didn't work. She wasn't able to replace Jennifer. Jennifer fought back in court dates and hearings. She fought to protect her children. And that envy and jealousy that was so in Michelle TROCONIS's heart, it turned to hatred and blame. And that is when this agreement to happen. The defendant did more than just agree to commit this act, though. She assisted in it. She assisted in acting as an alibi, in covering up the murder, making these 5 children wonder day in, day out what happened to their mother. In the beginning, hoping their mother would come home. All the while, the defendant knew she was never coming home.
Wow.
The motive of these charges, Your Honor, that she has been convicted of is clear. It is heinous callous, and it warrants substantial incarceration. Now, a jury of her peers have found Michelle TROCONIS guilty of each and every count. I'm not going to go over the 6 weeks of trial. Your Honor heard the testimony, you sat through all the defendant's interviews, her multiple lies, her misdirection, and her manipulation. Your Honor described it at an earlier hearing as 8 hours of inconsistencies on material issues and a cascade of circumstantial evidence. For sentencing today, I want to highlight some specific things that came out in the jury trial that showed the manipulation and pervasive cruelty of the defendant. And I want to be clear on one thing. We're not here to sentence Fotis Doulos. The defendant is faced with 45 years. Fotis Doulos clearly would be before the court, in the state's opinion, facing a lot more time. The state is basing its recommendation on the defendant's own actions, her agreement to commit this heinous act, and the defendant's lack of remorse and her lack of acceptance of responsibility. The actions in 2019 of a 44-year-old professional, educated woman with hate in her heart and a capacity to conspire to kill. The cascade of evidence, as Your Honor called it, some of the facts. The defendant manipulated Fotis's phone to act as an alibi as he murdered Jennifer Doulos, all to ensure she answered the call, the alibi call that was on Fotis's script as if it was he that answered that call. The defendant participated in the back and forth at 80 Mountain Spring Road and Fort Jefferson Crossing, and later discarded evidence on the Hartford city streets in garbage cans. The 3 separate fires at Fort Jefferson Crossing on Memorial Day weekend when the defendant was home. And the disposal of the bags of evidence in Hartford, tampering with evidence. You know, that sounds so simple, that word, tampering. We hear it all the time in criminal court, tampering. When, if you look at the facts of this case, it's so much more cruel than that. Because what did she tamper with? Blood-stained gloves, a bloody poncho, bloody towel, altered license plate in the sewer, a blood-soaked bra, sliced down the middle, blood-soaked shirt, sliced down the front, and the zip ties, the bloody zip ties that were found with them. What was done to Jennifer that zip ties were needed? Only those who agreed to commit the act may know. We won't ever know. Days later, when the police were looking for Jennifer, the defendant was writing an alibi script. And on May 29, 2019, she and Fotis Doulos took the Tacoma to the car wash at Russell Speeders in order to destroy any evidence contained within it. And looking at the garage at 69 Wells Lane at Jennifer's home, a home she had just returned to from dropping off her children, what could Jennifer have been experiencing in the final moments of her life? We get to ask that. What did she experience? Sheer terror and desperation come to mind. And of course, as a loving and devoted mother, her children. I think about what Jennifer must have felt and thought as she was dying, all the blood indicating a brutal murder. If she was zip tied alive with the bloody zip ties, we don't know. We don't know exactly what Jennifer felt, went through, or was thinking. But we do know what the defendant thought, because the very next day, the defendant got her hair done. She laughed and she smiled with her hairdresser. And later, joking at the pond with her friends, this was in her interview. She joked about if she can have sex with Fotis while in jail. Jokes. We know what the defendant thought. All the while, 5 children are home, scared and suffering. I spoke about the motive, Your Honor, the hatred that caused the defendant to commit this crime, and the egregious and awful facts. The defendant has never accepted responsibility for her actions. I'm also cognizant of today's date. Today is May 31st, 2024. It was 5 years ago today, on May 31st, 2019, that Detective Butin with the Connecticut State Police seized the defendant's phone and began the execution of a search warrant on 4 Jefferson Crossing. On May 31st, 2019, it was the first day the defendant became aware that the police were closing in on her too. And she had a choice that day to cooperate, to tell the truth, to accept responsibility, and she made a conscious decision not to do so. Instead, she perpetuated a lie after lie after lie. And here we are 5 years later. All there have been are lies. Multiple lies, misdirection, and manipulation of law enforcement. There is no Fotis Dulos over her shoulder manipulating her. She played her role to the fullest on her own. In her 3 interviews to the police, she tried to portray the facade of the dumb girlfriend. I believe those were her words. This from a professional woman with all these degrees and accomplishments that the defense presents, numerous letters from people who have interacted with her, supported her. The dichotomy presented shows not only the lies and the facade she played in these interviews with law enforcement, but also that she can clearly play a role that is expected of her. Now, I don't stand here and minimize community support. It is such an important and treasured thing, as Your Honor can see from the Farber family community that has come together. And the letters, the numerous letters written to the court about the defendant. What's interesting to me that I found after reading them, and I did read them, is they all essentially say the same thing. And none of these people, from her family to the people she was at the cookie sale with, people she water skied with, her daughter's friends, these are just a few of the people that she wrote letters on behalf of the defendant. None of these people ever stood in the way of something she wanted. That was only Jennifer. Jennifer Dulos is the only person that ever stood in Michelle TROCONIS' way. And look what happened to Jennifer. The motive, facts, and the defendant's true feelings. She has not shown remorse. All she has shown is contempt. The lies show a complete contempt for the criminal justice system, for law enforcement, for the law, for Jennifer and her loved ones. And what's interesting about the lies is how pervasive and planned they are, how they're actually about important things to the case. She knew exactly what she was saying. Her contempt for law enforcement was clear. Her contempt for the trial was clear. She's actually charged with contempt of court for her actions in the courtroom during the trial. Displaying the custody report on her laptop angled toward the camera in violation of the court's order. This is the true Michelle TROCONIS. And just by nature, a guilty verdict for hindering prosecution. Hindering prosecution is the epitome of contempt for the criminal justice system. All these things mandate a substantial period of incarceration. But I want to talk about one last thing before I end my remarks. And that is the cruelty she has shown Jennifer's family. From the first interview with the police, she attempted to perpetuate this false narrative, this lie that Jennifer was sick, the lie that Jennifer would abandon her children and run away. Again, from the very beginning, the first interview, June 2nd, an attempted manipulation that continued throughout the trial. The defendant knew full well that Jennifer had not run away. In fact, the defendant not only conspired to murder Jennifer Dulos, she then assisted in the disposal of her bloody clothing, and then attempted to manipulate law enforcement by coldly implying that Jennifer just probably ran away. The cruelty to do this, to imply to 5 children that their mother would abandon them, knowing she was already dead. It amazes me that someone could make that evil decision to murder someone, then disparage the deceased victim over and over again for years, making things worse for those sadly left behind. The hatred, anger, and jealousy towards Jennifer Dulos, she will never let her rest. This is cruelty. The state respectfully requests the court sentence the defendant to a maximum period of incarceration. I listened to the family this morning, and hearing their pain, I don't think I could stand here and ask for anything less. She gave Jennifer a death sentence, so we are asking the court to give the defendant a life sentence, 45 years. The defendant, over the course of months and years, has never let Jennifer Dulos rest. Hopefully, with this sentence, the court does. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Schoenhorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not going to quote from the 64 letters that have been presented to the court. I assume Your Honor had an opportunity to read them.
Yes.
And unlike the state, for my purposes, I provided those to the state days ago so they could read them. I was not given the same privilege with regard to the statements until moments before we started today. I'm not going to address them. I believe that they were heartfelt, the statements that were made, and I'm certainly not going to address any of those statements. I do, however, before I ask for certain comments to be made by family and friends, just want to note that there are, as I counted, approximately 44 people present in support here of my client, Michelle TROCONIS. They come from Florida, Connecticut, other states, from Europe, and 9 who came in from Latin America. There are a few that are going to be presented who couldn't fly in. So briefly, they made statements that I'm going to present to the court, brief statements by their video presentation comments to the court. But I do want to correct a false narrative that I believe the state has suggested, and which is sort of suggested by the pre-sentence report, and that is either that Michelle TROCONIS was the responsible for the breakup of the marriage to Jennifer Dulos with Fotis, or that she wanted to replace Jennifer Dulos and become the parent of these children. Nothing would be further from the truth. And just I'll indicate, as part of the information, the discovery that was provided, we have all of these text messages from Fotis Dulos' phone going back for years. And in those messages are all the text messages between Michelle TROCONIS going back to 2016, where she's expressing hesitation. You want me to move up there, but how is Jennifer going to look at this? Is this really something I should do? And Fotis Dulos repeatedly is saying she is fine, that is, his wife is fine with that. They've moved on. Their marriage has been broken up amicably. And yes, everything will be fine if you come up here with your daughter. We'll get you enrolled in the school. The children will be friends, et cetera, et cetera. So any suggestion that this was caused by Michelle TROCONIS is not a true picture. She also, I would also note that Fotis Dulos personally told, and it's not relevant for the trial, but personally told Michelle's family and mutual friends that it was an amicable divorce and that Michelle was coming up here and that his wife was fine with that. So I just want to
community as soon as it is possible. I don't say this lightly, and with the full knowledge of all the circumstances at hand. I believe wholeheartedly Michelle to be a person of extraordinary good character and a faith-filled person I would trust with my very own life. Thank you for your service to our community, and may God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call on Dr. Carlos TROCONIS to speak next, please.
This is Michelle's father. I previously said that Michelle is daddy's girl. Well, yes, daddy.
Your Honor, Judge Kevin Randolph. I am Carlos TROCONIS, an American-trained pediatric cardiac surgeon, mostly dedicated to altruistic medicine, particularly on underprivileged children with heart disease. With my efforts and the Heart to Heart Foundation, thousands of children's lives has been saved. I am here on behalf of my daughter, Michelle, who, although born in Memphis, Tennessee, grew up in Venezuela, where English is not our first language, And from now on, I will try to do my best. I am a proud father of 4 daughters and grandfather of 8 American grandchildren. From a young age, Michelle joined me on medical mission to indigent, neglected indigenous areas like the Amazon. She displayed great empathy and compassion with any patient while they heal. I come from a family of 7 siblings. My oldest sister, Laura, was born with an intellectual disability and was educated in a special needs school, co-founded by my father, pioneering special education in Venezuela back in the 60s. Michelle was very close to her aunt, Laura, and this bond, along with the practice on the medical missions, inspired her to study special education. Michelle also developed a passion for outdoor life and animals, particularly horses. This led her to specialize in equine therapy, assisting children and adults with special needs. Despite the divorce between her mother, Maricela, and me, my daughter's life has remained unaffected by our separation. We handle it with mutual respect and understanding, ensuring that our daughter's upbringing was stable and loving. Michelle's ability to maintain positive relationship and her resilience through personal challenges were shaped by the way her mother and I managed our divorce. The amicable handling of our divorce provided Michelle with a strong foundation and the understanding that even in difficult times, maintaining respect and cooperation is crucial. In 2006, Michelle became a mother. Since then, she has devoted her life to supporting her daughter's dream of becoming an Olympic champion. Through dedication, hard work, discipline, perseverance, and love, my granddaughters achieved her dream, ranking in the top 10 for the United States team at the Winter Youth Olympic Games 2024 in South Korea. Even though Michelle was on trial, her steady support was crucial to her daughter's success. Regardless of the separation from her daughter's father, Michelle ensured that her daughter's life remained stable and loving too. Drained from her own experience with our respectful handling of our divorce, Michelle maintained a nurturing and supportive environment for her daughter. This separation did not affect her upbringing, neither. And both parents continued to prioritize her well-being, focusing on her education and family values. Our family has faced painful difficulties. Michelle's confinement has been overwhelming, especially for her teenager daughter, who needs her mother's guidance and support. These past 5 years has been the hardest of my life. I have left behind everything I love, including my patients, to focus on the legal process and support of my daughter through this heartbreaking process, coping with difficult challenges. My heart goes to the Doulos children who lost both of their parents. As a father, plead with you, Josh Randolph, to show mercy in my daughter's sentence, given the chance she could continue to be a valuable member of society, providing care and restorative therapies to children and adults.
He reads it in a very matter-of-fact way, doesn't he?
Compassionate character I have shared will consider in your decision. Respectful, Dr. Carlos TROCONIS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't you find that quite emotionless? He sort of just reads it, his daughter's life's on the line, and he just sort of reads a statement. There's not much heart in it. Anyway, we're gonna jump ahead to
Friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Paula Salazar to speak, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Judge Randolph. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak here today. I am Paula, one of Michi's closest friends. For me, she's my best friend. I have had the privilege of knowing her for over 20 years. We met in Argentina, both navigating life in a new country, and our connection was instant. In a place where everything was unfamiliar and myself being shy and introverted, Michelle's friendship provided me with a sense of belonging and security that I will be forever grateful for. Michelle possesses a special spark that brings joy and good energy wherever she goes. I've always admired her authenticity and her remarkable ability to uplift those around her. When I met her, something that really struck me was her acceptance of others. She's the kind of person that never judges, criticizes, or speaks ill of anyone. A very scarce trait in today's world.
remember the comments
Throughout our
about
friendship,
Jennifer.
I've had the privilege of witnessing Michelle's unwavering dedication and love as a mother to Nicole. Their bond is truly inspiring. And in all these years, I've also had the opportunity to know and share moments with her family, and I've witnessed their warmth and closeness firsthand. In addition to her role as a devoted mother, beautiful family member, and an unconditional friend, Michelle has dedicated countless hours to volunteering. Every time I visit her in Connecticut, she took me along to assist at a church where we cooked meals and provided aid to the less fortunate. In Argentina, she made a profound impact on many individuals through her dedication to equine therapy. She has always demonstrated compassion, selflessness, and deep empathy for others. Michelle's fate took an unexpected turn when she crossed paths with Fotis Doulos. He appeared to be the perfect man. I personally engaged with him on numerous occasions, even introducing him to my children and my mother. And yet we never detected any red flags. Unfortunately, he showed that he was mostly a coward who left his children without parents and the woman he supposedly loved in this situation. This experience highlights the scary reality that anyone could find themselves in the place Michi is now. Your Honor, while I understand the gravity of the charges against Michi, I implore you to consider her positive qualities and contributions to society and respectfully request a compassionate outcome for her. And as I stand here advocating for my beautiful friend, I do want to express that my heart also aches for Jennifer's children and family. It's heartbreaking to know and think about the amount of pain they've had to bear. Thank you very much.
Attorney Schoen on the defense has about 15 minutes left.
They've really used up their allotment of time, haven't they?
I would now call on Michelle's sister, Claudia TROCONIS.
So I think it's Michelle's
Good
sister
afternoon,
and
Your
then her
Honor.
daughter.
My name is Claudia TROCONIS, and I am here today as the youngest sister of Michelle TROCONIS. I am grateful for the opportunity to speak about my sister, whom I deeply admire and support. Michelle has always been an example of kindness and compassion in her family and communities. She would never intentionally harm anyone or be part of any malicious plan as horrific as what she has been accused of. My sister is a loving and exceptional human being who unfortunately fell in love with the wrong man, Fotis Doulos. He portrayed himself convincingly as a charming, well-educated, hardworking man, and a dedicated father to his children, who seemed to embody great virtues. He deceived us all, but most importantly, my sister Michelle. One of the most frustrating things for Michi is that while people accept that Fotis fooled everyone, including lawyers and mental health professionals, my sister is expected to have seen him for what he truly was, a dangerous, manipulative, and controlling man. The fact that professionals missed it provides clear and convincing support for the argument that Michelle had no idea what Fotis was and what he was capable of. But I am here today to explain why Michelle would not have known anything and to speak of who she is. As the eldest of 4 sisters and over 21 cousins, Michi has always been the pillar of our family. After leaving our home country, Venezuela, she coordinated our gatherings, ensuring we stayed connected despite our geographical distances, reinforcing the close-knit bonds we value and maintain today. Michi has always been more than just my eldest sister. She has been like a second mother to me. We're 12 years apart, and her nurturing presence has been influential throughout my life. After her parents' amicable divorce, Michi took on significant responsibilities to support our family. One stark memory that stands out is when I was 6 years old and sustained an eye injury while playing soccer with neighbors. I was home alone with her and in a lot of pain, and Michi, without hesitation, rushed me to the nearest hospital, where I underwent critical surgery that saved my vision. Her care has been nothing short of heroic for me as a child. Michelle's also an exceptional and dedicated mother. She has been a committed mother to her only daughter, my niece, who's an Olympic athlete who has achieved the highest levels of medals while representing the United States of America. When I decided to have children, I aspired to be a wonderful and dedicated mother like Michi to my twin boys. She has supported every significant milestone for my twins and nephews, serving as an exceptional aunt. They too look up to their eldest aunt, cherishing every outing filled with joy and memorable experiences. Michi's passion for helping others extended into her professional life and is what inspired me the most professionally and personally. Motivated by her paternal aunt, born with an intellectual disability, she pursued a bachelor's degree in special education in Venezuela. Her dedication didn't stop with her degree. My father instilled in us a love for animals and sports from an early age, and Michi took it upon herself to do courses in equine therapy for adults and children with special needs. She pioneered the first therapeutic writing center in Venezuela back in the 90s.
So I don't know about you guys, but I kind of get the same sense as from her father. She's reading a statement, the words are the right words. This seems to lack heart. I mean, again, her sister's in this really serious situation. There's not really much emotion coming out of her sister, right? Think about the emotion, the real emotion we heard from the friends and family, the children of Jennifer Dulos. This feels very flat. This feels very perfunctory, doesn't it?
However, this wasn't just a job for Michi. It was her calling. She poured her heart into each session and each family she worked with, fundamentally changing lives for the better. She became the therapist and continues to be the main influence of my best friend's brother because he was diagnosed at an early age with an intellectual disability, and he says that Michi forever changed his life. One beautiful memory I forever cherish is when Michi took us both with her to a staying equestrian camp in New York, and that's when my intense admiration for her grew deeper, as I was just 12 years old then. I always accompanied my sister to her sessions as we shared the same passion for riding horses and helping those most vulnerable. Her profound impact on those she worked with, including my best friend's brother, is a testament to her character and dedication to our community. Thanks to her guidance and inspiration, I followed in her footsteps, volunteering throughout my high school years in a program called Full Courses for Handicapped. Her influence inspired me to pursue a career in behavior analysis, and I am a proud board-certified behavior analyst. She instilled in me the sense of making a difference in the lives of many children with special needs. None of this would have been possible without Michi's example and mentorship. What happened to Jennifer Dulos is heartbreaking. We're deeply aware of the pain and suffering endured by her family and 5 children these past 5 years. This has left a permanent scar, and our hearts go out to her loved ones during this incredibly difficult time, as no one should endure such suffering. Today I stand before you, Judge, to affirm my unwavering support for my sister Michi and to reveal her true character, which is very different from the accusations against her. Her life has been one of service, love, and dedication to the well-being of others. It is these attributes in her history of positive impact that I humbly ask you to consider in your decision for her sentencing today. Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me this opportunity to speak on my sister's behalf and for considering the full scope of her true character in your decision today.
Thank you.
Did Claudia
I call
write
on
this?
Michelle's daughter, Nicole, to speak. She was 12 years old in
I'm not sure.
2019. She's still a child.
Maybe in part. Okay, so this is Nicole, Michelle's daughter, who was 12 years old at the
Your
time.
Honor, I stand here today to speak about my mom, who means the world to me. I have been in my mom's life for 17 years, 5 months, and 12 days. Despite my parents' separation when I was young, today I recognize the healthy relationship, mutual respect, and care they still hold. They've exemplified the essence of co-parenting, always prioritizing my well-being above all else. My mother, Michelle, has embraced my passions as her own, particularly my love for skiing. Despite not being raised in the skiing world, she has devoted herself to understanding and supporting my aspiration in the sport. That includes moving with me to Colorado since 2015 for 3 to 5 months each season. My mom's presence at my races all over the US, regardless of her commitments, speaks for itself about her dedication as a parent. I remember asking my mom why she only had me, and her answer was, because I wanted to always offer all the attention to you. Michelle isn't just my mother. She's my best friend, my rock, and my guiding light. If you ask me who I want to be, my unhesitant answer would be, I want to be just like my mom. She's a perfect example of kindness, thoughtfulness, and selflessness. Whether it's cooking together, numerous friends of mine seek out her company, drawn to her warmth and kindness. Whether it's cooking together, sharing conversations, or simply being in her presence, people gravitate to her brought-up spirit. Reflecting on my past, I remember the introduction of Fotis into our lives. Meeting him at the water ski club in Miami. I noticed he was outgoing and friendly. I also met the kids, and I myself enjoyed spending time with them. Watching my mother fall in love with him, I welcomed the possibility of her finding happiness. When my mom decided to move to Connecticut, the first thing she let me know was about Sundown Ski Resort, a mountain only a few minutes away from Fort Jefferson Crossing. Even though she had fallen in love, she always carried the thought of me and how much I needed my skiing. So much that my mom and I would move to Colorado 4 to 5 months every year for my training. Despite spending considerable time with Fotis and even forming individual plans together, I never anticipated the tragedy that unfolded, leaving me shocked and confused. I never had the chance to meet Jennifer, nor did my mother ever speak ill of her. My heart goes out to the kids, and I earnestly hope that one day we all discover peace within our hearts. Through it all, I want to emphasize my love and trust in my mom. She has been my anchor, guiding me through life's troubles. She's the first person I call after a bad competition, and without her motivational words or simply her peaceful voice, I wouldn't be able to be where I am today in either my sport or in life. I am begging you to listen. I need my mom in my life. Not just as a parent, but as a source of strength and understanding. My love for her remains uninfluenced by the situations or difficulties we may encounter. Thank you for letting me share this with you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Understanding there's limited time, I want to point out a couple of things that haven't been made clear. The first is.
So to be honest, I didn't really feel Nicole's statement until the last 30 seconds to a minute. That's where I felt it was heartfelt. That the rest to me didn't really wash. Maybe I'm biased, but certainly I feel for her daughter, but it sort of also had a bit of a matter of fact, my sport's so important to me, blah, 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 sort of aspect to it. Anyway, we're going to jump from here to the sentencing. I just hope I can find the right moment. Just bear with me. There's a break, okay.
Vocational or educational training and medical treatment Those factors are not all given equal weight depending on the nature and circumstances of the offense and the history, background, and character of the offender. The court does not take sides. If the court knew possibly any one of you and had a bond with any one of you, this court would not have tried that case. It's not the court's role to side or favor one side or another. Sentencing, in many ways, is a dispassionate exercise. The court has no bond with any individual who spoke today or any other individual involved in the case. The court cannot develop the passions that one side or the other has. In State versus Huey, that's 199 Connecticut, 121 and 126, a 1986 case, the Connecticut Supreme Court held that the sentencing court may consider information that would be inadmissible at trial for the purpose of sentencing. That same court held that evidence of crimes for which the defendant was indicted but neither tried nor convicted may be considered. Well, the word indicted and the process of indictment is not generally employed in Connecticut. Essentially, that means where there has been a finding of probable cause, but there has been no trial or no conviction. Additionally, as a matter of due process, the court may consider information that has a minimum indicia of reliability. Now, that minimum indicia of reliability is not limited to unfavorable information. The court can consider favorable information that has a minimum indicia of reliability. The court certainly considers the victim impact statements. Every victim has the right to be heard before the court sentences a defendant. That's part of the Connecticut Victims' Bill of Rights, which is read every day in every courthouse here in Connecticut. The court would clarify what it perceives as perhaps a misconception of what the court's role is. The court does not deliberate with the jury. The court does not deliberate on the evidence at all. The court hears the evidence as the evidence comes into the record. So when you hear that the court has a view of the evidence, the court has no view of the evidence. What the court has is a verdict and what could have been the reasonable and logical inferences from the evidence that was adduced. The court would not know what the jury discussed over those many hours. What the court can find is this. It was clear during the jury charge, jury instructions, that the court instructed the jury that.
So just a quick comment, I don't have time to be here for 7 hours. So that's the reason why I'm not showing the full defense side and all the defense witnesses. If you're going to ask me, do I want to give Michelle TROCONIS and her family a fair shake? Well, no, I want to give Jennifer Doulos, who's dead, who's murdered, I want to give her a fair shake. She's not here to speak for herself. So am I biased towards Jennifer Doulos, the dead, murdered victim? Yes, I am. Right? Am I biased towards the dead, murdered victim? Yes, I am. I'm definitely not biased towards the convicted murderer who's about to be sentenced. So given a limited space of time, that's why I'm doing it this way. So please don't tell me I'm biased. I'm biased towards innocent victims, and I'm biased against convicted murderers. Cheapest.
It may draw any reasonable and logical inferences from the facts found to have been proven. Based on the verdict, the jury could have found the following reasonable and logical inferences. Fotis Doulos was not home at 4 Jefferson Crossing the morning of May 24th when his wife was murdered, but the defendant said he was home. When the defendant admitted that he was not home, the defendant, who had been angry about Doulos' talking to other women, did not even ask him where he had been. The defendant, who was angry that he had visited his wife, did not ask him if he had visited her. In fact, the defendant, as the court remembers, the evidence didn't ask him anything. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant knew where he was and knew what he was doing. The defendant said she saw Kent Mawhinney and Fotis Doulos together in the office at 4 Jefferson Crossing on the morning of May 24th, but the defendant did not see Fotis Doulos and Kent Mawhinney in the office at 4 Jefferson Crossing on the morning of May 24th. There was a phone call made to Doulos' phone, which Doulos left intentionally at 4 Jefferson Crossing. The defendant answered it, and the jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference from all of the evidence that the defendant answered the phone to make it appear that Doulos took the call himself on the morning of May 24th at 4 Jefferson Crossing, when he was really on his way to or in New Canaan.
That was a huge way that she helped him or tried to help him.
When a police officer came to 4 Jefferson Crossing soon after the murder, the defendant did not even go to the door, even though her daughter, who was not home, may have been the subject of that conversation at the door. Now, it has been clear that the defendant cares deeply for her daughter. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant did not go to the door because the defendant knew the reason the officer was there, to find out more about the disappearance of Jennifer Doulos. These are reasonable and logical inferences from the facts that were adduced in the case during the trial. The defendant traveled through a part of Hartford with Doulos as he dumps the bloody clothing of his wife.
Yep.
The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that on the same day, the defendant helped him pretend he was home. in the morning, but in the evening accompanied him to get rid of the evidence. The defendant's DNA profile was found on one of the bags disposed of in Hartford. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant helped dispose of the evidence knowingly. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant helped Fotis Dulos clean up traces of evidence at 80 Mountain Spring Road because the defendant and Dulos were there together cleaning on the same day that the coma traveled to New Canaan. This is a flurry of irregular activity all on the same day.
For sure, well said. A flurry
The
of
jury could draw
irregular
a
activity
reasonable and logical
on a
inference
particular day.
that the activities of that day were so irregular that the defendant could not possibly forget them in the span of 2 weeks. Even if the jurors individually had doubts about the defendant's guilt, each one of them ultimately concluded that their doubts were not reasonable. This is not a view of the court's view of the evidence. These are logical and reasonable inferences that the jury could have drawn. The court is going to talk a little about the philosophy of sentencing.
He is like a philosopher, you know, the glasses. He looks like a philosopher.
Sentencing is not the product of the court's passions or prejudices. The court doesn't have a bond with anyone involved in the case. It's a dispassionate exercise. The court did not investigate the case. The court did not talk to the victims. The court has no conversation with the defendant or the defendant's family. So there are some questions that are age-old. Does the court, the sentencing court, adopt the public opprobrium, the indignation of the community? When does retribution turn into revenge? What's the role of empathy? Should the court exercise sympathy for one side or another? These are age-old questions. The court relies on what the law says. The court can consider the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history, background, and character of the offender. Every exercise is not an either-or exercise. Often, the good and the bad are true.
And not anything that's all good is all good or bad is all bad. That's also.
What is the purpose of the court taking into consideration the victim impact statements? Is that only for the purpose of sympathy? The court uses the victim impact statements to assign, in its view, the proper weight to any one of those traditional purposes of sentencing. Sentencing is not arbitrary or capricious. It's not a matter of how the judge feels that day.
Yeah. Imagine if YouTube is sentenced.
Court wants to also address what has become, over the course of perhaps centuries, perhaps not, a cliche. Michelle TROCONIS' life is in your hands. Michelle TROCONIS' life is in her own hands. What Michelle TROCONIS decides to do today, tomorrow, and the next day is up to her. From what the court has heard, she has a great deal to offer.
Yeah.
Court has no control over what her decisions will be. Her life is hers. The following sentences are going to run concurrently. On the count charging conspiracy to commit murder, 20 years execution suspended after 14 and a half years to serve, 5 years probation. Tampering with physical evidence, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years, 5 years probation. Conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years, 5 years probation. The second count of tampering with physical evidence, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years, 5 years probation. Hindering prosecution, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years probation. After 4 years, rather, 5 years probation. Total effective sentence, 20 years, execution suspended after 14 and 1.5 years, 5 years probation. You will have an opportunity to challenge every finding that the jury made and every ruling that the court made. Madam Clerk, you can give the defendant a notice of right to appeal.
Judge, I'm going to orally state that Ms. TROCONIS does intend to appeal, and I ask the court to set a reasonable appeal bond. I will state that the appeal bond that the court set was not something that Ms. TROCONIS or her family were able to meet. I'm asking for something more in line with what she had been released on bond for the last 5 years. I would note that after Your Honor went on vacation, the state asked for additional conditions, which included making her move to Connecticut and remain within the bounds of Connecticut. My position, Your Honor, is the court obviously took that into consideration when it set that high bond, that she was not a resident of Connecticut, because that's what the state had then argued. I'm asking that if she's going to be released, that the court set a $2 million bond, but with a condition that she reside in Connecticut and not leave without permission.
And the court is going, well, counsel, the court is going to decline to set an appeal bond. It's not a constitutional right. Has the defendant signed the notice of right to appeal? We'll stand adjourned.
All rise.
Well, that is it, 20 years. Bear in mind, she's about 50 years old, so in theory, she might come out of prison at the age of 70. Although in practice, I would imagine it might be quite a bit sooner than that. She might come out for good behavior, who knows, at 60 or even before then. Yeah, Stephanie actually mentioned earlier, by the way, thank you so much, Stephanie, for your guidance and assistance in putting this together. You had watched it before, and so you were able to help me, so thanks very much. I didn't really want to do a session twice as long as what this is. I've kind of got other things I need to do. I need to wash clothes and pack and so on. But yeah, it is a light sentence, but I can't help thinking about it in the context of Oscar Pistorius, who got 10 years. This is 20. Also, she didn't actually commit the crime, but yeah, certainly in the context of listening to those victim impact statements, everyone asking for the maximum, it does seem as though the judge did dispassionately come to a particular conclusion. I don't know, like if she serves the full 20 years, I feel like I could accept that. And if she came out of prison as a 70-year-old, I could accept that. But something to, often it's 20 years, but then they come out in 10 or 15, and that's a little bit different. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me here. I wasn't really sure whether I would be able to do this. I did want to do it, but I wasn't sure if I would be able to. I would have loved to have been present in court in Connecticut. It was actually one of the goals I'd set in terms of this trip. I'm actually still not in perfect health. I'd say I'm at 85%. I went out last night just for a little, entertainment, and every time I do that, I seem to pay the price. So anyway, so thanks very much, the Drunken Tarot and Earth. Thank you very much. I do like to, if I cover something, cover it consistently and with closure. And as you know, I did cover the TROCONIS trial. I also covered the Lori Vallow trial, not as consistently as I would have liked, but I certainly was present at that case. The Michelle TROCONIS trial I found very touching, and also found it legally quite interesting because of the fact that no body was found, and also the conspiracy aspect. It certainly adds a subtlety to a case that is absent from many of the cases we deal with. Thanks very much, Sharon. And I do think it's important, what we really would have liked to have seen. We understand the needs for privacy, but, seeing those children's faces, we did hear their voices. We haven't actually seen many pictures of the children until today. And so for the first time, we've actually seen many of their faces, and it really brings to life the family that once was. And that family has really been devastated, has been torn apart. And the least that one can do is acknowledge the life, the lives, the family, the dynamics, the connections, the relationships that existed once upon a time. Jennifer's not here to do that. So all that's left is are her children, are her friends, or her family. And I must say, I felt they did a tremendous credit to her. Her children spoke beautifully, eloquently, effectively. Pretty much everyone who did speak spoke, I thought, very well. In terms of Michelle's family, you're right. They speak a different language, and they speak in a different way, and so that's going to have an impact. But I don't think there's anything wrong with honoring someone who's disappeared, and we don't even know where her body is. And what I find quite strange is the cruelty and callousness that Michelle brought to bear. It's seemingly not recognized in the least by her own family. So, what is that? Denial. I really connected in a strong way with the nanny, who just sacrificed so much, who's invested herself so much, and didn't have to. She didn't have to do any of these things, and yet she chose to do that. And so, there are some heroes in the story. Certainly, there are some villains as well. Okay, so this is the last day of May, and so I will be in the States for another 2 weeks. I'm going to Nashville tomorrow. I don't know if you guys saw on Cotton Star's Instagram, he actually had a close encounter with John Ramsey. It definitely brings to life the whole boots on the ground thing, doesn't it? I'm in Boulder now, and Cotton Star's in Nashville, and literally bumped into John Ramsey during breakfast. So head to his Instagram if you haven't already. Yeah, crazy, eh? Definitely pretty damn crazy. So anyway, this really is the last bye-bye from Boulder. So from this little nut, and I don't know if you can see this one. This is looks a lot like Jacques, doesn't it? John Monet's dog, and then there's another one in the back there as well. We basically bidding you guys farewell. Okay, so anyway, thanks a lot for joining me, and I'll see you guys in Nashville. Thanks so much for the super chat mods. You guys have been super. Really appreciate it. Take care. See you guys next time.